Hi, a very warm welcome back to Dusty Shelf Collectibles. Hope I find you well, and today we're back on the Clodbuster. So finished the build the other week, and the body's complete, the chassis was complete, you've seen those videos, but I'm coming back to do some hop-up items and make some changes to it. So I've got a complete lighting package to install. I have some oil-filled dampers to replace these friction dampers that the kit came with. And the main thing that I do want to do is replace the steering system. So the chassis as it stands at the moment has a single mounted servo in the middle, and then I'm just going to turn it around this side actually because it's easier to see. So with the single mounted servo in the middle, you've then got these two arms that come out and run to the front of the gearbox, that then runs down through a servo saver to create the steering. Now the problem is when you move the suspension, it actually rotates the steering shafts because the obviously the servo is not mounted on the gearbox. So what I want to try and do is get a servo mounted gearbox. I'm just going to put this upright like this. I'm hoping this is not blurred on the camera, and actually mount the servo just down the side here. Probably is going to mean we need to get rid of this this bumper on the front, but that's the plan for today. So I'm going to go ahead. I've already taken the body off, taken the wheels off just before I put the camera on, but I'm going to go ahead, get the shocks off at one end, and try and mount the servo. As I say, mount the servo in the side here and just get a direct linkage across, and see if we can get this steering a little better than the stock version. Right, so I've dropped the suspension off of there and I've just removed the bumper, rotated that down, and just looking at the side of this front gearbox, I think I can mount this in this area here, just by creating a plate, picking up on these two screws, and then mounting the servo on like that, and then taking a linkage to across the front of the vehicle. So yeah, let me have a little play and I'll try and make a plate, and yeah, see if we can pick up on those two screws. Well, I've had a few hours playing, so I'll just tell you where I've got to. So I've removed the bumper, I've removed the steering arm. This sits on top of the gearbox, and basically it was the previous linkage. And then on the front here, I'm just going to rotate this around so you can see, I've mounted the servo vertically on the side of the gearbox by making myself this bracket. So bracket sits on there, that screws onto the gearbox, and then the servo just mounts on the side, and then just rotating it round, if you can see the linkage here, I'll just move that out of the way, can replace this bar and run the linkage back across, and yeah, that should give me the servo mounted steering that I want. Unfortunately though, the bumper here, that's not going to go back on. I'm going to have to think about something else to do there, but I'll come to that once I've done got the steering all working. So I'm going to go ahead now and do the same on the other end of the truck. Take the suspension off, rip out the bumper and the steering mechanism, the old steering mechanism, get this mounted on there and get the servo in the other end. So yeah, I'll come back when I've done that. So I normally film from above, but I'm actually holding the camera in my hand at the moment to get the right camera angle, so apologies if it's a bit shaky, but I want to be able to point. So just to talk you through what I've done. So the servo is mounted onto these posts. These are servo posts. I think these were $1.99 a pair. Put those onto a bracket that I made, that you can see here, that's screwed onto the side of the gearbox. So it just picks up on the two screws on the side of the gearbox, and then these two brackets mount in. Note that the top bracket is behind the servo, the bottom bracket is in front of the servo. That gives the servo a little bit of a twist and brings the bottom of the servo in so that it's not overhanging too far. These little servo savers, now these are, servo arms. Now you could put a servo saver on here. The reason I haven't done that is the servo saver is actually more expensive than these servos. So I've got 25 kilogram servos on here, and just put a normal servo arm in here in the hope that obviously I don't strip threads. I don't think I will. I'm not going to run this particularly in too much aggression. So yeah, this is just a normal servo arm. So these servo arms, I think they're about £2.75. I got these from JKRC, there's a website called JKRC, and you can order from there. In terms of the steering linkage, so these little buckles, these are just standard M3 buckles, and this here is just M3 thread. So quite simple. I've just put the linkage back across on the bottom. I've changed it from the original one just because it looked a bit messy. Put these in there and then link the steering arm obviously to the servo here. Job done. So the main thing in here is just making this bracket, and that's quite simple. As I say, it's just making sure you've got your 4 screws that line up, and then it drops straight in. Now the important bit with this setup, if you note with this servo, we've got the servo at the top here and the arm pointing downwards. Right, and I'm just going to show you the electrics and then take you to the other end of the car. So in terms of the electrics, if you can see this this yellow lead here, you can see that it's a splitter. So I've literally taken from the output for the steering, put a splitter in there. One goes to the front servo, one goes to the rear one. And then this is the important bit, because on the other end of the car, exactly the same setup. However, the servo, if you note, is up the other way. Because of the four-wheel steer on this, the steering is opposed. They don't both steer the same way, it opposes each other. So you need this servo to push in the opposite direction and turn these wheels in the other direction to the front of the car. And with the servo, you can't just turn the plug round. It doesn't work like that on servos. You have to, they always will go in the same direction. So the servo's up the other way, so you've got the servo part at the bottom here, and this time the arm is pointing upwards. So just to explain a little bit more what I meant about the wheels opposing each other. When I steer, you can see that the front wheels are turning to the right and the rear wheels are turning to the left. And if you think about it turning in an arc, you know, with a four-wheel steer, you've got to make sure that they do go in opposite directions and not the same way. If you didn't alternate the servo up the other way at this end, then they would both turn in that direction, and you just end up with the car crabbing and not actually turning. So the trick is, as I say, one servo's got to be up one way, one servo's got to be up the other way, and then you'll get the four-wheel steer. Now suspension. So I took out the original shock absorbers. Let me just grab one from over here. That's for these things that I painted. They looked awful, and if you remember, I've said about the fact that all of the mass is down in the gearboxes. There's no mass in the body, so it's just bouncing around on these springs. So I invested in a set of oil shocks. Now these looked really good. These are from JKRC. Really good value. A set of 8 for £40. Basically advertised to fit onto the Clodbuster, and yeah, as I say, you get a set of 8. Unfortunately, where I've put the servo here, there wasn't a lot of clearance between the servo and the chassis, so I've actually made myself some lifting plates, and you can see one mounted here. Just quite simply, again, a piece of plastic I've just cut round, marked out the shape, and then drilled it out just to give me a little bit of lift. You see the new suspension just a little bit shorter than the original springs on here, and yeah, just by putting that plate in there, it's giving me the lift, giving me the clearance. However, it is still well oversprung. I mean, they look good. They are oil filled. They are dampers rather than these friction dampers and springs, but they are far too stiff. And the progressive springs on here as well, so they just get stiffer as they go down. So next job for me, I'm going to put the rear dampers on. You can see I've done the front ones there. I just need to finish off, get the rear ones on here, and then I want to move on to the... Well, I finished off yesterday evening putting in the rest of the suspension components, so they're all in. You can see the lifters that I've put on here and the new suspension. Obviously the steering's all done, so that's the kind of mechanics complete for the upgrades that I want to do on the Clodbuster. Now moving on to the lighting. So plan is, on top of the Clodbuster body, I'll just bring it across, there's a set of spotlights sitting on the roll bar. And I bought these aftermarket ones. They were a set of 4. They were £9.50, I think. Now they are very slightly smaller than the ones that are fitted on the car, but I don't think they'll look out of place. So I'm going to put those 4 across on the roll bar. That's the first thing. And I'm just going to talk about the radio. So I've actually bought a new set of radio for the Clodbuster, which is a new release from Abysma. Now this is basically their cheap version. I mean, the whole setup, including the receiver, cost me, I think it was £36, including postage. And again, I bought that from JKRC. Now this is actually a 4-channel radio, which is reason I went for this. So you've got your usual steering and forwards and backwards. That's your 2 channels for, you know, speed and steering. But then at the top here, there's 2 switches here, which is channel 3 and channel 4. So on channel 3, I'm going to put the spotlights, as I just mentioned, so I can switch those on and off from the control. Channel 4, I'm going to put on the headlights, so the headlights and the tail lights will come on with channel 4. And then this little box here is something that I picked up, believe it or not, from Amazon. Now, it is got the Tamiya markings on it. I believe this is just aftermarket and is intended for use in Tamiyas. I'm going to put it that way. And what you do is you hook this in. So basically you plug in the steering into one of these and plug this back into the receiver. And once this is in line, this now gives you indicators and brake lights, as well as some other functions on there to turn different bulbs on and off. So that's basically an automatic thing for turning the lights on and off for when you're braking, indicating or steering or whatever. So I'm going to include that as well. That's, as I said, I got that from Amazon. That was actually a tenner, so not bad at all. Hopefully it's got some longevity in it and a little bit of robustness, because as I say, although it's got the, you can see the Tamiya logo on there, it's certainly not, I don't believe it's a Tamiya release. Anyway, I'm going to crack on, try and fit these lights on. It's going to take me a little bit of fiddling around, and then I'll come back when I've made some progress. Well, I've been playing away, and but I've reached a bit of a snag. So where I've put my spotlights back onto the car, you can see I've managed to try and hide the cable running down the side here, but they've gone quite well. I've got those on. But when I've gone to plug them into the receiver, I thought the receiver had a switchable on and off due to the transmitter with these switches, but it doesn't. So I've just had to go and order a couple of relays to plug into the receiver. Hopefully they'll turn up tomorrow and we can get the lighting kit finished. But yeah, got the brake lights in, got the indicators all in, and as I say, got the roll cage on, but I just need to wait for some relays to turn up so that I can switch the spotlights and front lights on and off. So hopefully they'll turn up tomorrow and we can get this finished. Well, while I'm waiting for my bits and pieces to turn up, ready to put the relays in and get the lights working, I'm going to get the wheels back on the truck. And for this, one last hop up, Tamiya Factory Racing, set of blacked off wheel nuts there. You can see they're anodised in sort of dark grey black. So I'm going to put those on just to finish the wheels off. Well, it's a day later and this has just arrived through the post. So this little gadget here is a relay switch which plugs into the receiver. And now if I just plug the battery in, let's do that here. Where's it gone? There it is. Let's plug the battery in. Okay, switch the power on. So if I now bring this on top, you can see the switches on the top of the receiver here. Okay, so you can see switch hit 3 here, so on, and then I switch the switch off, and then I flip the switch again to turn the lights off. Simple as that. And as I say, that's what this little gadget does here. It's just a little relay switch that takes the signal from the from the receiver that would normally switch the servo, and just turns it into an on-off switch for the lighting systems. So I've got 2 of those. I'm now going to wire those in. These are going to be headlights and tail lights in the body, and then the other switch that I've got, another one of these, which will be channel 4, will turn on the spotlights on top of the cab. So I'm going to go ahead and get these in the body, tidy up the wiring, and then we'll come back and have a look at the lights and close this video out, I think. Now, the original relay switches that I purchased, I'll just bring them over, these little ones. Unfortunately, one of them failed immediately, the other one's a bit intermittent. So I've ordered some new ones, which are these little items. These were £6 each. And yeah, these just plug into the receiver, in line, into the receiver, and they just act as a switch, so they turn the lights on and off. So I've got 2 of these, one for the headlights and one for the lights on the roll bar. So I'm going to get those plugged in, and let's see how it looks. Well, the last job in this round of sort of hop-ups on the Clod Buster that I want to do is obviously replace these bumpers. Now, where I've put the new steering system on there, these no longer fit. And also, I made the mistake, and I did say this in the previous video, where I painted these, it's the wrong sort of paint for this this kind of plastic, and it is peeling off a little bit, just with little knocks, and it is making a mess. So they need replacing. Now, I've picked these up. This is from Clod Shop, which is ukmonsters.co.uk. They basically make aftermarket spares for Clodbusters. I picked this front bumper up, a little bit expensive, £32 this is, for the little aluminium machine bumper. Now, I was going to buy 2 of these, and then I thought, well, 60 quid, that's an awful lot of money. So I've bought one for the front to make it look nice. And then on the rear, I've actually made a bumper, just by taking a piece of cardboard and making that fit, and then cutting it out of I think it's 1.5mm steel, or it might even be a mil steel, just to make the shape there, and that'll bolt up under the gearbox on the rear, where pretty much where you don't see it. So I'm going to go ahead, get the front bumper fitted and my homemade rear one on there, and then come back and basically wrap this video up with telling you all of the changes that I've made and their costs, and then taking the car out for a run and see if it improves in the way it's driving and handling. Right, well I want to do one last walk around the car, just talking about all of the upgrades. Now I can't get far enough away from it on my bench, so I've had to bring it outside and just put it actually on the garden railway. Still haven't brought all the bits out this year, so I do need to do that. They're still in their box. Anyway, back onto the truck. So, what have I done here? So, the motors, these are upgraded. These are Sport Tune motors, but they are standard cans because one of them has to run in reverse. These were put in during the build, on the build video. Now, in terms of the steering, let's just talk through that. So, very cheap servos. They're actually £20 for four servos from Amazon, so £5 each. Put these servo horns on, £2, I think they're £2.40 from JCRC. Now you'll note I haven't put a servo saver on there. Servo saver is actually more expensive than a servo, so I've just gone ahead, put the servo in there in the hope that it won't strip all of the cogs. They are metal cogs, and because of the length of the arm, I'm actually getting quite a quick movement of the servo with those. In terms of the servo mount, these are just standard plastic servo mounting trees, mounted onto a homemade bracket out of plastic. Has got a carbon effect on there, but it doesn't have to, just purely for aesthetics, the carbon effect, but it's just a piece of plastic cut to shape. The link bars, again, these are all homemade, so the ends are just M3 straight off of the internet, as cheap as I could find, just these little blue ends, and then with some threaded bar in between, some M3 threaded bar in between, cut to size and mounted front and rear. So that got rid of the middle servo, which was mounted in the centre of the truck, and has now put one either end. And you can see on the rear again a servo mounted onto the rear gearbox there. The rear bumper that you see here, this again homemade, took a piece of card, bent it to shape, then cut it out of a piece of tin. I think it's 1.5mm steel, and then with this link bar at the top here, that just gives it some support in the upper section, and it's just screwed underneath the gearbox. So that's all that happened there. Again, repeated what happened on the steering. So now I've got servo front and rear, so again still 4-wheel steering, but much more precise and direct, as you've seen when it's running. In terms of the suspension, these uplifters, I put these on mainly because the new dampers were slightly shorter than the original ones, and also I've raised the truck probably by about 10mm. The dampers here, they were a set of 8, cost £40, and they were from, again, JKRC. And then down to the front bumper, which I actually bought this one. I thought about making it, but I'd never made such a neat job. So this was from UK Monsters. They make parts for the Clodbuster. Quite expensive this though. This was £32. So I think it's probably worth the money because it does set the truck off and it puts the bumper on there, which I'm quite pleased with. Now in terms of the lighting system, a couple of things that I've done here. So obviously I've put on top of the roll bar there the spotlights. These were £10 straight off of Amazon from one of the sellers on there, so nothing particularly expensive. Run the wires down inside. The lighting system that's inside the truck was a module. Now it's labelled as Tamiya, but clearly not made by Tamiya. It's made for Tamiya, and that allows the brake lights, the indicators, and the down lights that come on when the truck is stationary to be operated. Now I wanted the headlights and tail lights and the roof mounted spotlights all to be operational off of the radio gear. And now the radio gear I've put in here is a 4-channel. It's made by Bisma. The radio gear was actually £36, including the receiver. Now what I was hoping to do was just to plug these lights straight into the receiver and they would operate, but clearly that wasn't to be. So I've had to buy 2 little relays that plug into the receivers to switch the lights on and off. They were £6 each. So there you go, a few pounds spent on the truck, but not too much, and a lot of it homemade. And I think by the way it's handling, it's made a vast improvement. Really pleased with how different it is. When I first put the kit together and saw it running up and down the garden, it was all over the place. Very hard to steer and very hard to control, but now much better, and I think the lights look absolutely superb. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up, and why not check out the channel. There's plenty more other things on there, and lots of radio control car stuff on there as well. And if you can subscribe, you'd be doing me a really big favour. Anyway, I'm going to leave this video there, so I'll say thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.